I always thought that love could withstand anything, but everything changed in an instant. And then I decided, if she ruined my life, I will ruin hers. As you know, the devil is in the details. At the end of the story, you will find out which drop of my patience was the last. Savannah used to come home glowing, even after long shifts. She'd toss her keys into the bowl, kick off her flats, and scoop Lily into her arms like it was her favorite part of the day. That rhythm, that warmth, was our normal. But a month ago, it started to slip. Subtly at first, she began leaving Lily with her mom on short notice, saying work ran late or meetings popped up. No hugs, no bedtime stories, just quiet exits and vague reasons. I told myself it was stress, it had to be, but deep down something felt off, and that feeling only grew heavier. She said she had a work conference out of town, left in a rush with barely a kiss goodbye. I stayed behind watching cartoons with Lily and making mental excuses for why Savannah had been so distant lately. When she came home 3 days later, she was glowing again, but not the same way. Her hair curled just right, makeup perfect like she hadn't been buried in meetings. I helped her unpack the trunk, and that's when I found it. A small plastic dolphin, the kind you win from a cheap gift shop, bright blue with Palm Grove Resort, Naples, Florida, etched on the side. We'd never been there, never even talked about it. I turned it in my hand like it might explain itself. Savannah laughed when she saw it, said it came from a vendor at the conference, some kind of souvenir from a themed booth. She said it casually, brushing it off like nothing. I wanted to believe her. I almost did. But something in my gut twisted. I slid the toy into my pocket and didn't say anything more. After that, I started noticing the way she looked at her phone, always turning the screen away from me, always typing a little too fast, smiling a little too hard. Her texts were filled with love yous that felt robotic. She laughed at things she didn't share with me, and at night, she turned away from me in bed, breathing slow and deep while I laid there wide awake. Lily noticed too. She asked why Mommy didn't read bedtime stories anymore, why she was always gone. I didn't have answers. I just held her close and told her everything was fine. I had to keep it together. For her, for us. But I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. I watched Savannah more closely. I learned the rhythm of her phone swipes, the pattern of her passcodes, the sound of her steps when she snuck down the hall after midnight. One night while she showered, I tried her phone. Locked, of course. Her iPad too. But I started logging what I could. Names she mentioned, where she said she was going, timestamps of photos and calls. I wasn't looking for a fight. I just wanted the truth, laid bare. Something solid, not just the gnawing suspicion that had taken over every quiet moment in my day. And then a few nights later, Lily asked me something that brought it all rushing back. "Daddy, what's Palm Grove?" I blinked. She said she saw it on Mommy's bag. That wasn't the toy. I hadn't let Lily see it. There must have been a tag, something Savannah missed. I told Lily it was just a place Mommy visited for work, but my blood ran cold. She hadn't even tried to hide it from her. I sat outside our bedroom door that night, listening. Savannah was on the phone. Her voice was soft, low, the way she used to whisper to Lily in the nursery. I couldn't hear what she said, just the tone, and it wasn't for me. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes, counting the seconds until I couldn't pretend anymore. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I smiled in the morning. I packed lunches and poured coffee. I kissed her forehead and told her to have a good day. And she left, not knowing that I had already started gathering the pieces she thought she'd hidden. Because if she was lying, and I was beginning to believe she was, I wasn't going to scream or break. I was going to be ready, not just to catch her in the act, but to make sure she couldn't lie her way out of it once the mask came off. I wasn't chasing a feeling anymore. I was following a trail, one that started with a plastic dolphin and a lie that sounded too smooth. Lily's birthday fell on a Tuesday that year. Early spring, still cold in the mornings, but bright enough to feel like change. I took the day off, packed her favorite snacks, and showed up at her school with cupcakes and balloons. Savannah was supposed to meet us later after her shift. I signed in at the front office like I'd done before, but this time the secretary hesitated. She clicked through her screen, eyes flicking between me and the monitor. I don't see you listed here as her legal guardian, she said, calm but cautious. Are you sure there wasn't a change? Her voice wasn't accusing, just confused. I forced a smile, told her there had to be a mistake. She waved me through with a temporary pass, but something cold settled in my chest. I walked into Lily's classroom feeling like my hands weren't attached to my body. After the party, I stood outside the school dialing Savannah. She didn't pick up. I tried again. Nothing. When I finally got her, hours later, she sounded annoyed. Said it must have been a clerical error. Maybe she forgot to update the forms. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the pit in my stomach had grown sharper. I'd been raising this girl like my own since the day she was born. And now suddenly I was, what? A placeholder? I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, hearing every creak of the house like it meant something. Savannah turned in her sleep, unaware of how fast things were unraveling beneath her. The next morning, I scheduled a DNA test. I didn't tell her. I told myself it was just to get peace of mind. But deep down, I already knew. The wait for the results dragged on like a punishment. I kept pretending, kept showing up. School runs, bedtime songs, Lily's drawings taped to the fridge. All while wondering who I really was in her world. When the envelope came, I locked myself in the garage and opened it with shaking hands. The words hit harder than I thought they would. Probability of paternity, 0%. It didn't matter how many times I read it. It didn't get softer. I sat on the cold floor and stared at the garage door for what felt like hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stopped feeling. Everything inside me went still. At some point, I heard Lily laugh in the living room. That sound, that little voice, cut straight through me like a blade. I'd taught her how to ride a bike. I'd stayed up with her when she had the flu. I was there for every first word, every nightmare, every scraped knee. But according to that paper, I was nobody. That night after Lily was asleep, I laid the envelope on the kitchen table. Savannah came in with her usual tired smile, took one look at it, and went pale. She sat down without a word, her hands trembling. Finally, she whispered that it had been a mistake, said it happened before we got serious, swore she didn't know for sure, said she thought it was mine. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her like I was seeing someone else entirely. She reached for my hand, begging me not to tell anyone. Not her parents, not Lily, not anyone. She kept saying it wouldn't help to destroy everything now. Her voice cracked, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or just fear of getting caught. I stood up and walked to the sink, turned on the cold water, and let it run over my hands until they went numb. I stayed there for a long time, long enough for her to leave the room, long enough for the sound of the faucet to drown out her sobs. My reflection in the window above the sink looked foreign, like a man I didn't recognize, someone hollowed out and filled with ice. Eventually, I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and punched the mirror until it shattered. Blood dripped down my knuckles, thin and red, but I didn't feel it. I pressed my forehead against the wall and let the silence settle around me like smoke. I wasn't going to confront her again. Not tonight. She wasn't worth my anger. Not yet. Morning came like a slap. I stood in the hallway, watching the door to Lily's room, listening to her hum to herself while brushing her doll's hair. Savannah walked past me, acting like we just had a bad night. I didn't look at her. I just whispered the words that had been building inside me since I opened that envelope. Let's play. She froze for a second, just long enough for me to see the fear flicker in her eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I turned and walked to the kitchen like nothing had changed, because from here on out, everything I did would be calculated, controlled, and slow. She wanted to lie? Fine. She wanted to pretend I didn't matter? Fine. But she'd forgotten one thing. No one knows how to destroy a house better than the man who built it. After that morning, I wore the mask with ease, kissed Savannah's cheek like I hadn't watched her shatter the life we built. I smiled, laughed, played the husband role to perfection. She thought the silence meant healing. She thought she was in the clear. But I hadn't forgotten the test, the lie, or the plastic dolphin that kicked all of this off. What she didn't know was that I'd already started pulling threads, and I wasn't stopping. She was protective of her phone, kept its screen down, clutched it like a lifeline. But people relax when they think they've won. One night, she nodded off next to Lily on the couch. Her phone buzzed twice. I waited, slid it from her fingers, and to my surprise, it wasn't locked. My pulse quickened as I scrolled through the messages, flipping through mundane texts and family group chats. Then I saw it, one thread marked with a single letter. J. The tone was unmistakable. Familiar, warm, intimate in a way I hadn't heard from her in months. It wasn't just flirtation. It was a full relationship, mapped out in texts and hotel receipts and late-night digital confessions. My stomach twisted when I saw the photo. A mirror selfie, her smiling in a tank top. Jackson behind her, shirtless, his arms around her waist. Jackson, he'd helped install our fence. He'd held Lily when she was 3 weeks old. He was in our wedding photos. I read the rest, barely breathing. Jokes about me. Him asking, "Does he suspect anything yet?" Her response, "He wouldn't see it if it was in his lap." I took screenshots of everything, sent them to a hidden drive, and slid her phone back into place like it had never moved. Then I stood in the kitchen, gripping the sink until my knuckles went white. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I just planned. Over the next few days, I tracked everything. Her passwords, browsing history, iPad logins. I got into her cloud. That's when the whole picture snapped into focus. This wasn't just an affair. It was an escape plan. I found documents buried in her inbox, mortgage applications, digital signatures, forwarded listings for a house out of state. Savannah's name was on all of them. The co-buyer? Jay Owens. They weren't just cheating. They were building a new life. And Lily was part of the blueprint. One listing had a kid's room already staged, a name scribbled across the digital mock-up in cursive. Lily. I stared at it, rage pressing against my ribs. She was planning to take my daughter and vanish, without a word, without a fight. Like I was nothing but a shadow she could walk away from. Still, I said nothing. I played the perfect husband. We went out to dinner. She laughed in public, took my hand at the table. I smiled like nothing was burning inside me. Every night I backed up more evidence. Every morning I acted like we were healing. She had no idea I was watching the walls of her fantasy life close in. Even Jackson texted me back like everything was fine. Asked if I'd caught the game on Sunday. He was still engaged to Kelsey, still planning a wedding. Meanwhile, he was helping my wife pick curtains for their new home. It was so clean, so smug, it made me want to snap his neck. But not yet. No anger, no mistakes. Savannah had a work trip coming up, said it would only be a couple days. I'd already seen the itinerary. She and Jackson, separate flights, same city, landing within 20 minutes of each other. The same hotel name from their old messages popped up again. Palm trees again, she'd written, casually, like I wouldn't notice. That night, I pitched the idea, something last minute, a family camping trip, just us and nature. Something simple, something she couldn't say no to without raising suspicion. Her eyes lit up like I'd surprised her. She said it sounded perfect. I nodded, held her hand, and told her I'd take care of everything. She didn't know I'd already seen her ending. She thought she was holding the pen. I picked a quiet spot up north. Dense woods, lake access, no cell reception for miles. Savannah thought it was a romantic idea, something to patch the cracks she still pretended weren't there. She smiled when I packed the car, hugged me tighter than usual when we pulled out of the driveway. Lily was bouncing in the back seat, singing to herself. No idea what kind of war her parents were waging just beneath the surface. The drive was calm. Savannah played her usual playlist, offered snacks, pointed out deer on the roadside like we were some perfect little unit. I matched her energy, never flinched, never blinked. She still believed I was the idiot husband trying to save something sacred. That's exactly what I wanted her to think. We reached the site by early afternoon. No one else around, just trees, water, and silence. I set up the tent while Lily gathered sticks for a pretend fire pit. Savannah wandered toward the lake, phone in hand, probably trying to find a signal. I waited until she dipped her feet in, then went to the tent, opened her duffel, and slid the printed messages into the mesh pocket near her pillow. Every screenshot, every confirmation, photos, dates, plans. I'd printed them all. I didn't want a confrontation. Not yet. I wanted the truth to slap her awake in the dark, surrounded by nothing but trees and consequences. She came back smiling, wet up to her knees, and kissed my cheek like we were newlyweds again. That night, we grilled hot dogs, toasted marshmallows, watched Lily run barefoot through the leaves. For a second, I forgot what I was doing. For a second, I saw the version of life I used to believe in. Then I looked at Savannah, and the moment passed. We put Lily to bed in the smaller tent. She fell asleep fast, worn out from the fresh air and sugar. I poured Savannah a glass of the wine she liked and handed her a blanket. We sat near the fire in silence for a while. She leaned her head on my shoulder like it meant something. Then she excused herself, said she was getting cold. I watched her unzip the tent and crawl inside. It didn't take long, 5 minutes, maybe less. The tent rustled, then it stopped. Then again, sharper this time. I kept my eyes on the fire, listened for the breath to change. The zipper opened. She stepped out slowly, holding the stack of papers and shaking hands. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, pale, hollow. Then her voice cracked. "Where did you get these?" I didn't move, didn't answer, just looked at her, let her read it in my face. She dropped the pages at her feet and broke, right there, in the dirt. Her legs folded under her like the weight had finally become too much. She sobbed into her hands, loud, messy, real. Said she didn't mean to. Said she didn't know how it happened. Said it was a mistake, that she still loved me, that we could fix it. I didn't argue. I didn't offer forgiveness. She looked up, her face streaked with dirt and tears, and that's when she said it. "I'll leave with her. If you make this ugly, I'll just take Lily and go. She's mine." Her voice was sharper now, desperate, like a trapped animal trying to claw her way out. She thought she had leverage, thought threatening me with the one thing that still made sense in my life would make me fold. But I didn't flinch. I stood slowly, walked over, and crouched in front of her. "I've already filed for full custody," I said quietly, before we left. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked up at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe that was the point. I let the silence stretch between us until her breathing slowed, until she realized the weight had already shifted. Then I turned and walked back to the fire. She didn't follow. She stayed there, curled in a ball outside the tent like a ghost of who she used to be. I didn't sleep that night. I lay by the dying fire, watching the shadows shift, listening to the wind scrape through the trees. My heart felt like it had been beating nonstop for weeks. When morning finally came, it wasn't the sun that woke me. It was the pressure in my chest. I couldn't breathe right. My vision blurred. My hands went numb. I thought it might be a heart attack. I staggered into the woods, away from the tents, away from Lily. My legs buckled behind a tree, and I hit the ground hard. I tried to suck in air, but my lungs wouldn't open. My fingers curled into the dirt as everything inside me clamped shut. It felt like drowning from the inside. I don't know how long I stayed there. Minutes, maybe more. But eventually the pressure eased. My lungs dragged in a breath like they were doing it for the first time. I wiped the dirt from my face, stumbled to my feet, and walked back toward camp. When I returned, Savannah was pretending to make breakfast. Eyes red, smile fake, voice forced. Lily ran up and hugged me like nothing had changed. Savannah didn't say a word about the night before, and I didn't offer her the chance. The courthouse felt smaller than I remembered. Cold gray walls and that same chemical scent from years ago, when Savannah and I first came here to sign Lily's birth certificate. Now I stood alone, fists clenched in my pockets, waiting to finalize something I never thought I'd need lawyers for. Proof that I deserved to stay Lily's father. Savannah walked in 5 minutes late, dressed for a performance. Fresh hair, polished nails, a blazer meant to impress. She didn't look at me, not once, but I saw her jaw twitch as she sat across the aisle. Her lawyer leaned in, gave her a nod, and they both looked confident, like they believed the version of the story they'd prepared. She went first, claimed I was unstable, controlling, said I had become cold and emotionally neglectful, that I kept Lily isolated and monitored Savannah's every move. Her voice cracked in all the right places. She cried just enough to seem vulnerable. Her attorney spoke like they were reciting from a script. Polished, precise, entirely fake. I didn't interrupt. I let them say everything. And when it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I submitted the evidence. Every screenshot, every email, property paperwork with Jackson's name beside hers, photos, hotel bookings, and recorded conversations. Her voice clear, her intentions laid bare. The courtroom changed as they read through it. Savannah's composure began to splinter. She leaned into her attorney, whispering fast, face pale. The judge asked questions, direct and simple. Savannah couldn't explain away the messages, couldn't lie her way past the purchase documents or the custody threats caught on tape. There was no space left for her performance to breathe. And then the ruling came. Full custody awarded to me, effective immediately. Savannah made a soft sound, barely audible, and then collapsed forward, her body folding like the air had left it. Her lawyer called for help. Paramedics rushed in. I didn't move. I stood there while they lifted her onto a stretcher, her hand dangling as they wheeled her past. She didn't look at me once. Outside the courtroom, I pulled out my phone and sent 2 emails. No subject, no explanation. Just the full file, every detail of the affair, the photos, the escape plan, to Jackson's fiancée, Kelsey, and Savannah's father. 3 days later, Jackson vanished. His name was gone from his firm's website. Kelsey moved out of their apartment. Social media wiped. Savannah's father called me once. No words, just silence before he hung up. I never called back. The next week I sold the house, packed every one of Savannah's things into labeled boxes and sent them to a storage unit. I didn't touch Lily's room. That was sacred. The rest of it, scrubbed clean. When Savannah showed up with the police, screaming about her house, I met them calmly at the door and handed over the paperwork. My name on the deed, custody papers in order. The officer didn't flinch. Savannah did. I gave her one thing before she left, a framed photo of Lily on her 3rd birthday, frosting smeared across her smile. You said she's yours, I told her, so keep the memory. She stared at it like it would explode in her hands, then turned and walked to the squad car. The door shut behind her, and I thought that might be the last time I'd have to see her. But I was wrong. A few days later, the school called. Savannah had shown up unannounced, claiming she was there to pick Lily up. Said it was a misunderstanding. By the time I got there, she was already in the parking lot, engine running. She looked at me through the windshield like she didn't recognize me anymore. Like I was the villain in the story she'd created. The police arrived fast. She didn't resist. She curled up in the back of the cruiser, eyes hollow, mumbling about wanting her daughter back. I stood on the curb and watched the car drive off without saying a word. That night, I filed for a restraining order. Now she can't come near Lily or the school. Can't text, can't show up. Her name might be on the birth certificate, but the state had made it clear. Lily was with me now, and she was staying there. Still, I lock the doors twice every night. I check the cameras more than I sleep. I see Savannah in places she doesn't belong, at the edge of crowds and blurry reflections, in dreams that never end right. She's not gone. Not really. She's just waiting for another opening. But I won't give her one. I watched the moving truck roll away from the house like I was watching a ghost disappear down the street. Empty rooms echoed in ways they never had before. No footsteps, no laughter, no reminders. Just hollow space and dust where love used to live. The house wasn't ours anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. Selling it felt like finally admitting what Savannah had done couldn't be patched. It had to be burned out of my life completely. Her things were already gone. Every last sweater, every makeup bag, every framed photo of her holding Lily in some pretend perfect moment. Boxed, cataloged, and dumped in a storage unit on the far side of town. I paid 6 months in advance, locked it, and walked away with the key still warm in my palm. I didn't throw anything out. Not yet. I wanted her to see it was over, and that every trace of her had been filed away like she meant nothing. She came back faster than I expected. 2 days after the house was sold, she showed up with police at my new apartment, stood there like she still had a claim, like the months of betrayal and court rulings had been erased. Her eyes were bloodshot, hair undone. She was trying to look calm, but the panic seeped out of her voice when she spoke. The officer stepped forward, said she was here to collect her belongings. I handed over the paperwork, legal, notarized, time-stamped, storage unit location, list of items, custody terms. She stood on the porch reading, lips twitching. Then she looked up at me. "That's all I get?" I didn't answer. I just reached inside the door and brought out a small frame. A photo of Lily, one Savannah hadn't seen before. From the first day Lily moved into the new place, crayon in hand, smile crooked, cheeks sticky with juice. "You get the memory," I said. "Nothing else." Savannah took it like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just turned around, stepped off the porch, and left. The officer nodded once and followed her to the car. But I knew that wasn't the end. And I was right. It was a Thursday when the school called again. Savannah had shown up with a hoodie pulled over her head, waiting by the exit where the kids line up for pickup. She didn't get far. The principal recognized her, called the police, and blocked her from getting close. Lily never even saw her. That night, Savannah sent 6 messages in a row, all blocked. Then she used a different number. Threats, promises, desperate, rambling voice notes about how I'd stolen her life, about how she was taking back what's mine. I didn't reply. I sent everything to the police. My lawyer filed an emergency petition. The restraining order became permanent. No more loopholes. No more gray areas. She couldn't come within 100 yards of Lily, the school, or me. Her rights weren't gone, but they were frozen solid. And the more she tried to claw her way back in, the colder the system became. She didn't stop. Not entirely. A letter showed up a week later. No return address. Inside was a drawing, Lily's name written in a shaky hand, flowers around it, and a note in the corner that said, "She'll want me again someday." I burned it in the sink. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I pulled into the driveway, I scanned the lot. I changed my route to work twice. I installed new locks. Lily didn't notice. She was happy here. New room, new toys, sleepovers at my sister's, weekends at the lake. Her laugh came back. Her appetite too. But mine didn't. I couldn't tell her everything. Not yet. But she knew something had changed. Knew that mommy wasn't part of the bedtime routine anymore. She asked a few times in the beginning, voice careful, like she was testing how far the question could go. I gave her what I could, just enough to feel safe. Not enough to understand the betrayal sitting underneath it all. Savannah wasn't just unraveling, she was sinking. Every time she reached out, she slipped further beneath whatever version of herself she'd been holding on to. And I knew, the harder she fought to force her way back in, the more permanent her absence would become. I had the law now. I had the proof. I had the space. But even behind locked doors, I still watched the shadows. 3 months passed like breath on glass, slow, silent, fading into something cleaner. I didn't count the days, I didn't track the silence. I just let it happen, like a fever breaking. The air was different in Colorado, sharper, higher, honest in a way city air never was. I'd found a small apartment near a lake, tucked between pine trees and mountains that felt ancient enough to keep secrets. It wasn't big, but it was ours, just me and Lily. The first week we moved in, Lily drew a picture of a house. It had a red door and a yellow sun in the corner, trees bent from wind, and a dog we didn't own yet. On the front porch, she drew me holding her hand. No one else. She pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a star and said, "This is where we'll live when we grow up." I didn't cry. I just nodded. We made a ritual out of drawing the future. Every Saturday morning, we'd sit by the big window with markers and sketch new rooms for our house. Extra bedrooms, an art studio for her, a hammock for me. One time she drew a secret tunnel that led to a treasure chest full of candy. I told her we'd need strong locks for that. The bookstore downtown became our weekend spot. Lily liked the reading corner. I liked the quiet. That's where we met Claire. She worked the register, remembered our names after the second visit, and always saved a new picture book for Lily behind the counter. She never pried, never asked about Savannah. She just smiled easy, spoke soft, and laughed like she hadn't been broken before. Maybe she hadn't. Or maybe she just learned how to carry the pieces better than most. Claire started walking with us, first from the shop to the coffee place, then down by the lake. One afternoon, Lily took her hand like it was nothing, like Claire had always been there. I caught the look on her face when it happened, that hesitation, that fear of stepping into something that still might bleed. But Lily tugged and Claire followed. And I didn't stop her. I hadn't let anyone in for a long time. Not really. But Claire didn't try to take up space. She just filled the quiet with warmth, like she understood what kind of weight still hung in the corners of my chest. We didn't talk about the past. Not hers, not mine. We just walked, drank coffee, watched Lily skip rocks across the lake like she was flinging old pain into deep water. The nightmares stopped after the second month. The shadow of Savannah in the rear view, the sound of doors creaking open at night, the fear of finding her outside Lily's school. Those things slowly peeled off me like old skin. I still checked the locks, still glanced twice at every unknown number on my phone, but the panic didn't grip me the same way anymore. Lily asked about her mom less. When she did, it was soft, more curious than sad. I gave her simple truths. Mommy was far away, and she needed time to get better. Lily always nodded like she understood more than she was letting on. Kids carry silence in their bones sometimes. But she smiled more now, ate better, slept through the night without calling out. One evening, Claire came by with a puzzle and a bottle of wine. Lily fell asleep early, sprawled across the floor, still gripping a crayon in her hand. We sat on the porch as the sun slipped behind the trees, the sky bleeding into violet. Claire asked if I ever thought about what came next. I didn't answer right away. I just looked out across the water, watched the light fade. Then I looked at my daughter sleeping peacefully with ink on her fingers and dreams on her face, and I said, finally I can breathe again. No bitterness, no pain, just space, just air, a new beginning, one I wasn't chasing, one I built myself. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.